Don't make others uncomfortable? This is long, but it has to be to provide the needed details about what happened. About 10 years ago I worked in a team of scientists. Which is almost enough the drop the mic right here open mouth smile. When one day our boss told me others perceive me as contemptuous, I was shocked beyond words. I certainly did not feel superior or feel contempt for anyone. I was so flabbergasted I was silent for probably 2 solid minutes. I asked for an example of when something I had said or done gave someone that feeling. He said he couldn't divulge that information. Okay, then I asked for an example he had experienced or observed himself. He said he had none. I said, since I have no clue what I've done, how am I supposed to adjust my behavior? He said he didn't know. I said, basically then, I just need to not talk? He said he wasn't sure. I knew right then what to do. I am pretty introverted, and as a child I didn't talk for years. I rarely spoke until I was about 13 years old. Got lots of notes from teachers about how quiet I was. I would answer questions when directly asked, but rarely spoke otherwise. So, my malicious compliance in this situation was easy for me. I just stopped talking except when asked a question. I made a point of smiling, showing I was listening, nodding agreement, etc. I was extremely polite and agreeable. Pretty soon some big issues came up that I had specific knowledge about. I knew how to solve them, but no one else asked. A huge conflict came up between 2 of our labs because one group wanted it one way and the other group had a different opinion. They fought and fought. People were having secret meetings in their offices to try to win. And when they finally arrived at the action they chose, it was wrong. In fact, both groups were wrong, and the whole experiment failed. It's important to know no one was hurt. No property damage or anything like that. Just a lot of wasted time and expense on materials. But I never said a word. This went on for 3 weeks. The lab's budget had to be revised. They had to cut travel expenses, which I was okay with because I didn't want to travel anyway. So, no conferences for anyone. This is a big deal for a lot of researchers because it's how we gain notoriety to be able to get grants, among other things. Finally, a colleague asked me why I hadn't spoken for so long. Why I was so quiet. Was something wrong? I explained about being told others perceive me as contemptuous. She had the same expression I did when I was told. She said she didn't believe anyone had said that about me. I honestly was surprised again because I believed our boss. Then she asked me what I thought about the experiment design and why it was failing. I told her about the solution I believed would work, which was actually surprisingly simple. She recognized it had a good chance of succeeding and asked me to share the idea at the next department meeting. At that meeting she asked me again in front of everyone and I repeated what I told her. Several people asked why I hadn't spoken up sooner. I explained I had been given feedback that indicated I caused others to feel uncomfortable. The whole table of colleagues also looked stunned at me. I said I was committed to not causing such bad feelings and couldn't figure out how to communicate, because the feedback didn't give me any specific guidance. Everyone looked at the director at that point and he said, "We shouldn't discuss personnel issues." It was my issue. So I said, "If anyone here perceives me as contemptuous," and said as much to our boss. "That's the reason I haven't been talking. If you don't feel that way about me, let me know and I will stop being silent." Someone else said we needed to hold a vote so there wouldn't be any more confusion or talking behind anyone's back. They voted 100% for me to talk normally and that they didn't agree that I was ever contemptuous. That director slowly stopped coming to work, month by month after this episode, until he was only showing up 1 day a week. Finally, he took a lab position elsewhere and one of my colleagues was promoted to director. And the experiment was a success. The next year I got a grant to keep the research going and paid for 2 people to be able to travel to the related conference to present our findings. Whenever I had a performance review with any negative stuff, I always asked for specifics. Most often there was none, and the source was confidential. My consistent response was that I could not address something that was vague and unattributed, and strangely enough, the next review had nothing about it. One time my review was ghostwritten by a manager because my boss, the VP, delegated it. The actual writer got many things wrong, both positive and negative. I escalated it to HR. My boss rescinded the review and disciplined the writer. Later on, when I managed people, I learned from this and made sure my employees' reviews were honest, specific, and actionable to reinforce positives and address negatives. Sounds like the director had an inferiority complex and decided that you were looking down on him for no real reason. Very nice malicious compliance. When someone says, "Other people say this, but refuse to say who," it's probably them. You had a bad manager. I often have to talk to staff about their behavior and I can't always say who said what. That said, I communicate clearly with examples about what needs to be changed. How else can the problem be solved? Way to go and congratulations. And your coworkers deserve congratulations also. There are so many posts here which are cool but aren't MC. This is not one of those. This is what the sub should contain. Great job. Up. I wish I could upvote this more than once. I have a saying for people like this director. He's a legend in his lunchbox. Guess the director's PhD wasn't enough of an ego boost for him. Had to put down those who worked with him. Guess that failed as well. I like how when you question someone about details their entire story falls apart. If they can't tell you how you need to adjust your attitude, then there is not real issue. This is the second story I read today about someone's manager making up weird stories. You know, one thing I found difficult about being an adult in the working world was the fact that people will lie for no reason, that most managers have weird inferiority complexes, and that most people should not be ever put in charge of other people. I just see another case of a overinflated fragile ego on an insecure little man. Sounds to me like the director had an inferiority complex and took his petty frustrations out on Op. So basically what he was saying was, "Could you please stop being so contemptuous asking for a friend?" Absolutely perfectly done. Well played. The most reasonable and benign of malicious compliance smiley face. What about that boss though? They were the one who made up that story about you appearing contemptuous in the first place. And your story makes it clear the boss and director are two different people. What was the boss's reaction? I had that reaction once in a job interview at the same firm as my mom worked. She knew it was BS and asked around. Turns out I was much better qualified than the guy who would be my boss, and he felt uncomfortable about it. It was about this time I started leaving some of my qualifications off my CV for certain jobs. What can I say? The numbers of interviews went way up. I learned some men have frail egos when it comes to overqualified women. Wow. Bravo. Is it your gut feeling that this feedback was actually from your manager instead to keep you quiet, and that he felt insecure and envious about your knowledge and abilities? This happened to me when I tried Hickory Farms one season. This regional director boss told me the same thing your director did with no actual reason why. and officially demoted me from assistant manager and then had me fired the next week. My manager and I cried together because we had no idea what this bitch's problem with me was, except that people seemed to like me okay? Or that I wasn't inferior in other ways. Still don't know. Reported her to no avail since she was still there next year. Whatever. Hope she always has rocks in her shoes. They felt threatened by your competence and invented a magical world in their head to justify punishing you.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Cast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.